President Trump has signed a new executive order called the Preserving and Protecting Integrity of American Elections, which is aimed at fixing the broken election process here in the United States. And naturally, the left is already screaming bloody murder over this. Trump's executive order is mandating that people who want to vote must provide documentation, government-issued proof of U.S. citizenship, in order to register to vote in federal elections. This shifts away from the current federal voter registration form, which relies on self-attestation under penalty or perjury, supplemented by a driver's license number or social security number. The goal for this EO is to prevent non-citizen voting, which should seem like an obvious goal, especially considering how many illegal aliens are in the country. But of course, leftists consistently claim that voter fraud is super duper rare, my friends. Non-citizens, they don't like to vote in federal elections. That's just crazy. The Trust Me Bro side of democracy tries to tell us that concerns over election integrity are just silly. Don't worry about it, my friends. Nothing to see here. Now, follow me on this. One of the big complaints about why Trump is the big bad evil for doing this is that estimates are suggesting, these are from these people complaining about why Trump shouldn't do this, that there is somewhere between 9 and 11% of eligible voters, meaning somewhere between 20 and 25 million people, who lack immediate access to documentation proving that they are citizens. 20 to 25 million people who we can't verify are citizens voting in the elections. Now, this is an article from The Guardian discussing this latest turn of events. It's titled, "Trump Signs Executive Order That Will Upend U.S. Voter Registration Process. Millions of citizens could become disenfranchised in farthest-reaching executive action targeting immigration." Donald Trump, they write, has signed a far-reaching executive order that promises to fundamentally disrupt American voter registration processes, introducing measures so restrictive they could in effect disenfranchise millions of citizens, possibly illegally, if enacted. I added that last part there. Described by Will Scharf, the White House staff secretary, on Tuesday as the farthest-reaching executive action taken in the nation's history, the order represents the latest in a long list of assaults against immigration, meaning illegal immigration, but also on current voting systems. The sweeping order amends the federal voter registration form to require proof of citizenship in order to vote. Oh, no, we can't have that. You don't have to prove you're a citizen. That's bad. It demands documentary proof for citizenship, such as a passport, to be eligible to vote in federal elections, empowers federal agencies to cut funding to states deemed non-compliant, and instructs the Department of Justice to prosecute what the White House paints as election crimes. The measure also seeks to block states from accepting mail-in ballots after Election Day, regardless of when they are mailed in. We call it Election Day for a reason. There should never be votes coming in after Election Day. That's crazy. The fact that we even put up with this in the recent past is signs of how bad our election system has become. The Guardian goes on to write that many of the provisions in the order are likely to be quickly challenged and are legally suspect. The U.S. Constitution explicitly gives the states and Congress the authority to set the rules for election and does not authorize the president to do so. Daniel Lang, a voting rights lawyer at the Nonprofit Campaign Legal Center, meaning nonprofit meaning Democrat run, said the short answer is that this executive order, like all too many that we've seen before, is lawless and asserts all sorts of executive authority that he most assuredly does not have. Now, let's talk about this. The U.S. Constitution does give states primary authority over elections. For example, in Article 1, Section 4, states get to set the time, place, and manner of congressional elections. However, Congress has the authority to make or alter such regulations for presidential elections under Article 2, Section 1. Now, this framework has long been interpreted to mean states run the show, think voter registration, polling logistics, and ballot counting, unless Congress steps in with specific laws and rules. And Congress, by the way, has done so before, which is what I think this EO is actually focused on. That is the National Voter Act, or Voter Registration Act, or the NVRA, which was created back in 1993, which standardized federal voting registration, and the Help America Vote Act of 2002, which set minimum ID standards for new registrants. But these laws still leave states significant leeway in how they run their elections. So, in other words, Though the states are the ones that get to oversee the process, when it comes to federal elections, Congress has the authority to alter rules and regulations as they see fit. And Trump's executive order mandating documentary proof of U.S. citizenship, meaning passports, birth certificates for federal voter registration, leans on the argument that the federal government has a compelling interest in ensuring only citizens vote in federal elections, which shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. It is critically important, especially now, especially when you have somewhere between 20 and 30 million illegal aliens infesting every state. This poses a severe problem for election integrity. If they don't have to provide proof of citizenship, you are opening the door for fraud and abuse of our voting system. And with sanctuary states and sanctuary cities running amok, the likelihood in my book is high that non-citizens are voting even now, no matter what studies that these people try to hide behind, these leftists claiming that this is all a nothing burger. This is all ridiculous. Don't worry about it. Don't look into it. Now, The Guardian does have one small point here, and that is, and this is the fly in the ointment for Trump's executive order, is that it doesn't come from Congress. It is an executive action. Presidents cannot legislate. They can enforce laws, though, or direct agencies within their purview, although with how the corrupt courts are getting, it's starting to feel like there are 700 mini presidents in black robes setting the rules behind the bench, but whatever. Now, Trump could argue, and this is what I think they're going to do, that he is interpreting HAVA and the NVRA, which set the standards for minimum IDs for new registrants. He could be using these as the justification to prioritize citizenship verification, directing the agencies like the Election Assistance Commission or the Justice Department to align policies. And we have seen in the past the Supreme Court upholding federal authority to set eligibility standards for federal elections. I don't know if you remember this. Think back in 2013, where Arizona was slapped down by the Supreme Court after they tried to add proof of citizenship to their state's voter rolls. The Supreme Court said, well, that went beyond the federal requirements, and they said, you can't do this. It's up to Congress. It's up to the federal government. So this may be where Trump is trying to go with his EO. And if he frames this as enforcing congressional intent, then this might still stand. But your guess is as good as mine, considering how corrupt the court systems are now. And you better believe that the party of illegal voters, the Democratic Party, will try every tool in their toolbox to stop the verification of citizenship from happening. Now, The Guardian goes on to write, Republicans have long sought to add a citizenship to the federal form and been stymied by the courts. Then they mentioned the Arizona thing that we just covered. Let's see. So, the order tracks with a controversial bill in Congress, the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility, or SAVE Act, which would require Americans to prove citizenship in person, a requirement that could immediately eliminate mail-in and online voter registration, already across 42 states, as well as D.C. and Guam. And yeah, we need to get rid of all mail-in voting, outside of very specific circumstances like the military, etc. This is the doorway to fraud. Now, Kansas had a law requiring proof of citizenship in effect between 2013 and 2016, and it wound up putting the registrations of 30,000 people in jeopardy, meaning they didn't actually keep them from voting, and the vast majority of whom were eligible to vote. The Center for Democracy and Civic Engagement reported in 2024 that roughly 21 million voting-age Americans, about 9% of the population, do not have a current valid ID. Now, despite Trump's claims of widespread election fraud, federal law already prohibits non-citizens from voting. And I might add that federal law also prohibits people from breaking and entering into the country across the border, and yet there are millions and millions of them already here. So, that doesn't mean much now, does it? And there are penalties, including up to 5 years in prison. Now, current election systems already use multiple federal databases to verify voter eligibility, including citizenship data from the Department of Homeland Security. And yet we have the Social Security Administration finding millions upon millions of people who are dead but still marked as alive and eligible for benefits. I don't trust any of this stuff. Now, a day after the 2024 elections, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, Director Jen Easterly, the agency in charge of overseeing election security in the United States, said, "Our election infrastructure has never been more secure, and the election community never better prepared to deliver safe, secure, free, and fair elections for the American people." Oh, I just believe her. Importantly, she says, "We have no evidence of any malicious activity that had any material impact on the security or integrity of our election infrastructure." Really? I just want to say that that is a load of BS. Never been more secure. The mass mail-in voting says otherwise. We used to get election results in one day, and now for some states like California, it can take days or even weeks to get the counting done. Our election integrity is at the worst possible shape it has been in my entire life, outside of maybe the 2020 elections where everyone was mailing in ballots en masse. That was worse than the 2024 election, but it's still terrible. This Jen Easterly is either running cover here for a broken system, or she's been smoking a lot of crack. Either way, she's an idiot and she's wrong. Now, we can expect lawsuits to attempt to stop this being filed almost immediately, my friends. Voting corruption rights groups like the ACLU, the Brennan Center, or Mark Elias's Democracy Docket will file challenges in federal courts, probably within days. They will certainly be targeting blue-leaning states with sympathetic judges, think California's Ninth Circuit, or the D.C. courts, to argue that the EO, or the executive order, oversteps executive authority, and that it violates states' election powers under Articles 1 and 2, and disenfranchises voters under the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. All nonsense, of course, but that is what they will do. And you can expect states like California, New York, or Colorado, whose election systems, which include late ballot counting, minimal ID rules, will try and stop the executive order from happening. They will sue to protect their autonomy. And of course, my friends, in the era of court corruption, you can bet your bottom dollar that we're going to see a nationwide injunction before long, stopping all of this, at least for the short term. Politically, you can expect the fight over this to be intense. The Democrat Party, which has a vested interest in allowing non-citizens to vote, will decry it as voter suppression, attempting to rally what remains of their base. And Republicans, of course, will cheer this as election integrity, while governors and secretaries of state will face pressure to either comply or risk local backlash. And if they defy the federal government, they could potentially lose federal funds. Now, of course, my friends, the long-term solution to all of this would be to have Congress weigh in themselves and fix the problem once and for all. This should be a no-brainer that you mandate proof of citizenship. You need to have voter IDs. That's it. Full stop. This is ridiculous and stupid that we're even fighting this. And part of me wonders if that is one of the ulterior motives of Trump's executive order. By doing this, and getting the media to scream about it, and getting the Democrat Party to fight over it, it will force it back into the public consciousness. It will get the people debating it. And if enough people discuss this, you will build the political will and desire to see the safe and secure elections passed in Congress, which means we might yet just see a bill solidifying Trump's election protections as law. Either way, it's bound to be a hot mess in the coming weeks and months. So buckle up, my friends. It's about to get crazy and full of nonsense for the foreseeable future.